this is something I did yesterday afternoon after the lesson, and just because I've got back into the charcoals, and I just wanted to do something in colour. I think the variety of working in different mediums is a healthy thing for me. It just keeps me alive, I suppose. Alive to what I'm doing. So I'm going to talk about the improving your drawing thing. Now, this is purely my experience. So if you think I'm pontificating about something, I'm not. I'm just telling you what happened to me. Right. So I see all these. What triggered this was I saw somebody talking about drawing boxes and spheres and whatever else, and just keep doing that. And there was just so much for me. It just triggered lots of things about what happened to me. So, because I at the time hadn't made the distinction, I just wanted to earn a living. So illustration was the way I the route, if you like, not strictly illustration, because my thing was design, I suppose. Illustration wasn't part of the course, but we had to visualize, and because I could draw already, it wasn't that much of a stretch, to start visualizing my ideas. So, and this, when I eventually ended up working in design industry, was the kind of thing that I would illustrate. Would visualize. So a client wanted to see what the designs for their new labels were like, and that's what I'd do. I'd illustrate, the various labels for their pet products, for instance. Or in this instance, it was SodaStream wanted to put their juices in bottles, so I would visualize an ad, for instance. So that's what I was doing, and really that's not far from these characterization things. This is illustration. It's not just visualization. So I was doing that as well, and I was doing that. I just said about working in charcoal and then working in oil pastels. So the extremes of what I did this kind of thing as well, which was technical illustration, which is what I did when I was between 14 and 18. I went to night classes to do it, City and Guilds, and so it was illustration, strictly illustration, ellipses and airbrushing and everything, penning, and that's prior to Photoshop. So so I got into this sort of illustration rut, and sort of drawing things from in technical illustration. You want to be able to draw things from different angles and understand the 3D-ness of things, or represent the 3D shape. But when I came back to doing this, those were the last things I wanted to do. I just wanted to express myself. Admittedly, there's going to be a residue of those skills still there, even after 30 years. But it was the illustration thing that drove away my desire, because it became doing it for someone else. My curse was that I could do any kind of style. You've seen all the different styles that I do. I could do any kind of style. So people used to come with all kinds of requests. So whether it was coloured pencils, or whether it was watercolour fashion illustrations, whether it was caricatures, which you've just seen now, whether it was oil pastel illustrations. It just went on. It didn't really matter what they asked me to do. I could do it. So watercolour illustration again, and that was a curse, So because I was suddenly doing their bidding, if you like, do it in this way. So an art director would say, I want this in this style. And I think the sane illustrators stuck with the style, whether or not they were always in work, it didn't really matter. They stuck with their style, and they kept their sanity. And that I didn't do. So I was forced into a place where I was just doing other people's bidding. And this idea of it doesn't matter as long as you're putting your creativity to work, it doesn't really matter. It's completely wrong. It's your creativity is really precious, and it can be distorted by expectations of others. and damaged by their expectations. So this idea that, you know, we're drawing boxes and squares and whatever else, objects that you pick up and look at it at different angles and do it 1,000 times, you've got to think carefully before you start doing that. Is illustration what you want to do? Because that's all that is. Whereas it might be something, your creative response to the world might not be an illustrative one. It might not. Let me just show you in some of these. Admittedly, this is the Association of Illustrators. This is 1980, but there is extremes of, you know, usual sort of cutaways of you know, machinery to things that are much less illustrative and more creative, in that they are an artist's response to something. Particularly when you see that with editorial stuff, you see that, you know, the message is one of interpretation by the artist, as opposed to simply trying to illustrate the fact, which is what an illustrator does. To say, no, this is where the buttons are. This is where this is the details of the pores and all the rest of it. That's an illustrator. And if you want that, if that's the thing, is that you don't know if you want it or not. But you've got to start from a place of reason. You know, what is it that that motivates you to do it? And once you have that established, you can pretty much well, you can pretty much be left to your own devices. Because what happens is, once you've established your motives, your reason, everything else falls into place. Whereas if you start from a point of view of, this is how you should draw, this is how if you do it 1,000 times a day, that's their decision, that's their definition of being an artist, not yours. It doesn't have, you know, just because they say they're making the assumption that you want exactly the same things as they do. Oh, improve, do this, I did this, and look how I improved. Fine, that's absolutely brilliant. I'm chuffed for you. But it's not necessarily what I want from it. I don't really know what I want from it. I just know that I want to. I'm trying this one, by the way. I just know that I want to respond to the world. I want people to see what I see. That's what I don't want people to see what they would see. If you're showing people what they'd see when they looked at this thing anyway, what's the point of view? If you've got an object and you show them that, they'll see the object for what it is. And why would you want to show them exactly what it looks like? You want to show them how you see it. That's the difference between an illustrator and an artist. An illustrator will want to show people the illustration. The illustration, you know, how to put your flat pack together, that's an illustrator. So an illustrator needs to show you what the final product looks like, so you know what you're aiming for, so to speak. And that's the problem. So your drawing is in that sense, it has a function, a purpose. So the need to draw things in a three-dimensional way, that understand the forms of things in 3 dimensions, they're all required. But is that what you are? Are you an illustrator? Are you somebody that wants to show the world what they could already see? For me, that's not right. I think from an artist's point of view, I want to show the world the way I see the world. And that fundamentally is about response, because the only thing that determines the way I capture what I see is the way I respond to it. So this is back to when I was talking about the emotional response, the mindset thing. So as I said, when I came back to doing this, and I'd never done portraits before, so it wasn't like I'd rekindle any portraiture skills, because I didn't have any. I've got draftsmanship skills, but I'd only got the usual stuff, say, to be able to draw things in 3 dimensions and represent them in 3 dimensions, which is just a learnable skill. You're just going to do it often enough. So when I came back to it, I wanted to run away from that. I got a bad taste from the requirement to illustrate. So I didn't want to be that anymore. I just wanted to respond to things, which is what drives everything that I do. It's just my response to what I see and what I feel. So that, for me, that was the revelation. You know, the drawing isn't a linear activity. It's making marks to capture what you see, driven by what you feel. And as soon as that fell into place, all of a sudden everything changed. I tell you what, one of the things that did change dramatically is that my drawing improved, because it no longer had to conform to this ideal of what drawing is. It's just, it is what it is. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But that's whether it works or not. It's not a determination of whether or not the lips are in the right place or the eyes are the right shape. That's illustration again. So this idea that you're going to do this 1,000 times and your drawing will improve only really applies if you're an illustrator, if you want to illustrate the world in front of you. And a lot of people do, by the way. That's a perfectly amicable pursuit. I think that is there's nothing wrong with that. As I say, as long as it's you, truly, and not a case, because it can be a hard route. You know, if you want to be perfectly accurate with things and detailed, you kind of learn a lot of technique and skill and all that sort of. And it's a hard route, and all the pain that you put yourself through because it's not good enough. You know, it's not as detailed enough, or it's all of that you put yourself through. But so long as you're aware that that's the case, then go for it. I've got no qualms about people being illustrators. But this idea that your drawing will improve because you do this 1,000 times could be a detrimental thing, because you will become that technique or that skill or that whatever. Whereas if it's purely about your response, you may need those techniques to manifest your response, but you will acquire them appropriately. That's the thing. So the idea of drawing something 1,000 times in sketchbook is, in a way, forcing your development, because it's forcing you in that direction. It may not be the skill that you need, but you're going to focus on doing that because it's going to, for some reason, some purpose, it's going to improve your drawing. Drawing isn't this. It isn't this. I mean, I used an analogy the other day about the head of drawing at a particular university, and I remember at the time seeing what he did, and to all intents and purposes, it wouldn't be the archetypal drawing. It was mark making more than anything else, and he should have been head of mark making, but most people wouldn't understand what that meant. I'm sure he did, because that's what he did. But drawing is so much more than just a linear activity. In order to encapsulate, the color or the tone, so you just draw an outline and fill it in. It's not. Drawing's more than that. It's as much to do with your visible response, your visual response, as it is to do, and your emotional response, as it is to do with the marks that you make. Because all of it is driven by those things, primarily by your emotion towards it. So you feel. Because that's the thing. You're driven to capture a face or a likeness of or a persona, and there's a reason why you don't want to do that. For a lot of people, it's just a technical exercise, but for many people, it's because you moved to do it. You know, you stood in front of a landscape and thought, "That's a fabulous thing. I'd like to paint it." But that is what you want to manifest. And it's not necessarily I want to draw it. I want to capture that landscape, but I want to do it really detailed. I want to do it so I get every leaf on a tree and all that. That's not. You just want to capture that landscape. So you're emotionally driven to do it, and that's me. That's how I feel about it. So I try and. So every line, every mark that I make is going to have a little bit of my emotional response embedded within it. So that then it drives what I learn to do. So if I need to be able to be more accurate, then I'll learn to do that. But I'll learn those skills appropriately. They're relevant to what I'm trying to do. They're not skills that I've got. That I've talked about the skills before, but they're not skills that I've got laying around in the toolbox ready to use when I want to use them. But I think that, as I said, the thing for me was this sudden realization that all those skill dependent things were just a distraction from what I was really trying to do. They were just overwhelming the desire, the emotional response element of it. They were just as I said, the distraction. And I know early on when I was doing it how the technique thing became a killer of the outcome. So I sort of started thinking about the wrongness of things, and then looking at various great artists like Sargent and looking at the wrongness in some of his drawings, and thinking that he'd actually embraced that. He'd actually embraced the idea that wrongness is a component in what we do. As I say, I don't like to second guess what these great artists were thinking. There's some people like to, but I see the wrongness in his work, and I interpret it in a certain way. And that was another one of those revelations that it's not always about that perfect execution, those perfect lines, and it didn't matter. That was the other thing. It didn't really warrant any kind of fixing or hiding or whatever, because he just left it there. You look at some of them, their eyes are too small and their mouths are too small and necks too long and all that. You see all of that, but they're just amazing drawings, regardless of those things. So that, in a way, that's not him drawing boxes and squares and silly objects from different angles. And I'm sure he did all that kind of thing because he went through the kind of formal training, But there would have been a time when he suddenly realised that all this stuff's a bit unnecessary. And I get the idea that, the argument that you have to learn all this stuff and then forget it and then find your own way. I just worry that that's a little bit naive to say that kind of stuff, because it's like, if you grow up liking mushrooms, whether you like them or not, it's not the issue. It's the fact that you'll always ask for mushrooms. You know what I mean? So it's like arriving on a job and you've only got screwdrivers, and you start looking for screwdrivers. So it's looking for screws. So it's a little bit of a, when people say, oh, you learn all these skills, you only learn to see things that will be applicable to your skill level. And I see that all the time. People say to me, I haven't got the skills to do that. Why is that a thing? That's because they spent a long time learning specific skills, and they look for ways to apply those specific skills. That's the problem with the skill acquisition, and thinking that you can then eject those and find the true way. It's not a logical thing for me for that to be the case, because you'll always look for ways to apply the skills you've learned. But as I say, from my point of view, I just wanted to do things that were just more responsive, i.e. this kind of thing. Yeah, I think the fact that it's about response, not technique, and not understanding form and all that sort. I think the fact that I can do that is the reason why I can work in any medium. It's because I'm not bogged down by expectations of how it should work. I should be able to simulate the form of this, etc. But I can't, because, for instance, with these things, with the oil pastels, it's just these things are a law unto themselves. So if I come at this with a designated outcome, then I'm going to be struggling, aren't I? So rather than that, I just let it be. I let my emotional aspect to it drive it, and it'll be whatever it'll be. And not 9 times out of 10, because I'm only pleasing myself. Don't forget, I'm not concerned about pleasing someone else. This is my thing. This is my domain, and I'm going to be master of my domain. I'm not going to think that, oh, I should have done it like that, and so and so says I should do this, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to. This is the only place in my life where I have total control over of what's happening. So I'm going to exploit that. I'm going to lean right into that. This is, as I say, this is where the joy thing comes in. I've got to do this for the joy of doing it, and that means doing it my way. But those are the conclusions that I came to after, not in the early stages. I wasn't too concerned about the technical side of things. But as I sort of looked around, and I've said this before, someone said that I was pontificating, but I wasn't. I looked around and saw all the how-tos and all the, you've been on it, how-tos and the methods and the knowledge you must know and all that. I looked at it, I can't be bothered with that. I just thought that was just going to get in the way of me just having fun. So I didn't follow that path. And I just thought I was just going to do it. And I do it every day, and I enjoy it every day. And I look forward to it every day. And if I don't do it, it's like there's something missing in my day. So that's all you want to be. I don't care about it being in some exhibition, or whether or not I've won a prize, or whether I'm competing against other artists and they're better than me. I don't care about any of that. I just care about doing it. And that is that's the beauty of this. As I said, this is my domain, and I'm king of this domain. And that's all I want. I don't want it. I don't want it to be any more sophisticated than that. But as I said, the idea of you must draw this, you must draw that. I would say, keep away from stuff like that. I keep away from anything that tells you this is how you should do it. I've seen people talking about things as if it's the only way. There's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, and probably more. And that's a terrible thing to say. So what a strange euphemism that is, analogy or whatever it's called. That's not a nice thing, is it? I've got a cat, Pablo. I hate the thought of somebody skinning him. But anyway, it's just a saying. And but that's it. That's the thing. It's just, and I'll arrive at whatever destination that I'll arrive at, and whether it works or is irrelevant. Whether or not it's a perfect replica of a face is irrelevant. I'm not trying to do that. This is just a pure emotional response. But I think that the number one thing about having this kind of attitude is that you're kind of unstoppable, because you can't fail. Because there is no failure in this world of zero expectations and acceptance. There is no failure. How are you going to fail? Because you don't meet somebody that I'm going to try and rub this out. And I've just thought you can't rub this stuff out. Anyway, this is a Conti pencil, by the way, one of those pastel. Oh, it's all right. I can do it. So as I said, there is no failure. Failure doesn't exist in my world. So that means you imagine that applied to everything. So I don't care whether apply it to the beginning of what you do. Apply the fact that whatever you're about to do, it cannot fail. Imagine, just think about it like that, and watch how more relaxed you are about doing this. Because that's the thing. It's not it's almost like a release. Suddenly, all the shackles of someone else's expectations, somebody, this because these guys that say do it every day and you'll get good at it, they are good already. They are good. You look at their work; they're amazing artists, but they've done it 1,000 times for almost 1,000 years. So it's difficult for them for you not to believe that what they're talking about is correct. But they've no concern for your personal development. They want you to do it like them. They believe that you want to do it like them. That's what they think. So that's the problem. You see, it's like a little bit of arrogance from their point of view, saying, "Oh, everybody wants to draw like me, so do this every day and you'll be great. You do these boxes and squares and you'll be great." And that again, it's one of those things. And I tell you, that was me. I'm not sort of talking nonsense. That was me. I was that person that would quite happily have done 1,000 noses every day for the rest of my life to be as good as some of these people. But funnily enough, the good ones that I came across weren't like that at all. They weren't going to tell me how they did it, not necessarily because they didn't want to, but because it was how they did it. It wasn't how they wanted me to do it. So they recognized that, and then they'd encourage that individuality, and that, I think that's what I'm talking about. Is this accepting that this is your journey, and the skills you develop, you'll acquire anyway. I think that one of the things you must underestimate is that if you need to do something, if your way of seeing things is a particular way, and you need to be, I don't know, even be more accurate in the way that you represent things, you'll find out how to do that. But it's being driven by the right motives. That's the thing. It's not driven by, this is how I'm told to do it, which is the problem. That, as I said, that because then you take on board other people's expectations. It's other people's definitions of what this is, and it's not your definition. You don't. This is the thing. I talked about this earlier, and I'm on my warm up for this. You don't know what you're capable of, but you're capable of more than what you think, and you're capable of more than what other people think you're capable of, because they make this assumption that unless you know these things, you're not very good. That's wrong. That is wrong. You've got to find what is your creative spark, what is your creative individual essence. You've got to be able to find that, and you're not going to find it whilst you're locked into some regime of practicing whatever else for 1,000 times. You're not going to find it in there. Those are just skills that will come in useful, and they'll only come in useful when they're appropriate. You're not going to, as I say, walk up to a job and get out all your tools appropriately and all that. You don't really want that. And I've said this many times. Robert and Rye said about every job should be as if you've no skills. Every portrait and every work, it has to be as if you've got no skills. And that's it. You start from a purely responsive and pure creative standpoint. But I say I don't want to sound like I'm preaching or dissing anybody else's approach. I'm not. I'm just telling you what happened to me in my approach to this, and where I came from, and why I do what I do, in hope that it might help somebody. I think that's and that's my general thrust with all this stuff. I just want people to not get bogged down with expectations and prescriptions of how things should be. I think the biggest, a friend of mine that does it, and he said, these are proven techniques, and this is what all artists should know. And this guy this morning was, this will improve your drawing. Will it? Will it? It's like the arrogance in that one statement is a problem for me. How do you know? How do you know what kind of drawing how drawing works for me? How do you know? So as I say, that's I'm not dissing other people. It gets me back up when people make these sort of claims and they sort of catch it all, and then they demonstrate with serious skill, practice skill, and it just blows things out of context, because they're already capable of these things, and they've done it because they've done it good at it because they've done it 1,000 times. It's just like me with this. The reason why I can do this is because I've done it 4,000 times. That's it. End up. But as I said the other day, my mental approach to it is what drives it. It's not the technical stuff. The technical stuff I bring out when I need it. That's the thing. If I and it's not always, you know, draftsmanship stuff. This is an example of that. This is the technical stuff. With this is that there is no technical stuff. This is me just trying to represent things and observing the way that tones actually shape or form the shapes. That's me doing that. It's not. There's no technical. I've got no technical skills with oil pastels. I've no skill at all. I mean, my experience of, you've seen all over the last weeks how I've developed with that stuff, but I haven't got serious understanding of how it works, or I haven't got the range of colours in order to do it properly or make any kind of representational painting or illustration. So as I say, it's I have to, you know, I lean heavily into the mindset thing. I think that's what it is, and my motives for doing it and all the rest of it. So anyway, I don't want to ramble anymore. I think I've rambled enough, but hopefully that helps people, because it's helped me to approach it like this. This is why I can do what I do, and this is why I'm happy every time I make something, and I experience joy when I make something, because I'm not bogged down by other people's expectations or prescription of how it should be. But that I think that all got to come back down to why you're doing this. You know, why you're doing this in the first place is the motives. And if it is just to make copies of reality, then you got to do the practicing. You've got to draw the boxes and the squares and get used to using various mediums. You've got to do that if your reason is to make copies of reality, whether it's your grandkids or whether it's a landscape or whatever. So, and someone said to me the other week, you've got to put the yards in, you know, which is not true, but it's how some people think. But yeah, but if it's not, if it's just a case of I just want to express myself, I want to just paint and draw and experience the joy of being creative, then you don't need all that rubbish. You don't need to be practicing in sketchbooks 1,000 times to draw noses and things. There's all kinds of bad thinking with that, because it's like you don't want to tell your brain that you're drawing a nose, because it's going to just regurgitate noses, and you'll end up drawing the noses that you know and not the noses what you see. But that's the dangers of getting bogged down by technique and ways of doing it prescribed by other people. Right, I'm done with this. I just wanted to have a bit of a ramble, I suppose, and talk about these promises of being able to improve your drawing by doing things repetitively for a few months, when you could have been drawing. That's the thing about practice. I don't practice, I just draw. I think artists don't practice. I think artists draw. The good ones just make work. And practicing is, although some of them refer to what they do as practice, which I don't get that, but it's not about practice. It's about making work, and you just get better or worse, depending. I know people have got worse from doing it, and that's because they've got the wrong mindset, because they did it in the first place. That's the only reason why. Anyway, as I say, I'm done with this, and I'll catch you in the next one.